What's a hero section on a website and why is it so important? Good question. We're going to talk about that in this episode. So what a hero section is on a website, it's actually the very first thing the user sees when they come to your homepage or landing page. It's literally the very first section at the top. When the user comes to your website, they literally decide within the first 5 seconds if they're going to keep scrolling down and look at more of the website, or if they're going to leave and check out some other websites, because there's literally hundreds of thousands of other options. That's why it's crucial to grab the user's attention in an intelligent way. What do you mean intelligent way, Gary? Can you please explain? Yes. So what I mean by intelligent way is figuring out, first of all, start off by figuring out hierarchy. You don't want to have elements, design elements specifically, competing with each other. You want to have typography, you want to have color, you want to have different shapes, all those kind of things not to compete with each other, and certain things to stand out more than others. In most circumstances, I suggest having a very large headline and keeping this headline very short and quick to the point. And on that headline, just basically describing what you can do for the users, or what that company, the website that they're visiting, can do for that particular user. In other words, how they can benefit from this product or service. It's also good to have a complementary graphic or a video in combination with that large headline. You also want your user to be able to do something actionable. You want them to take some kind of action. So for that, you have a CTA that lives right there in the hero section of the website as well. And CTA stands for call to action button. And in most cases, this button will either contact somebody or buy something or take them to a certain section, but it's very important that there's some action that lives there for the user to be able to take. Depending on spacing and depending on how much real estate space you have in your hero left over, another good aspect to exist within your hero is social proof. And social proof pretty much means like you would have some branding, maybe some companies that company has worked with, maybe like, for example, just like Nike or Netflix or Hulu or something like that. Some credible companies that you could show like, hey, I worked with this company and you could trust me to help you with this service. The next thing I want to talk about is making sure that the hero section of your website doesn't just work well for the desktop version of your site and doesn't just work well for the mobile version of your website, but also works really well for everything in between. And for that, I suggest when you're designing your website, checking it in different breakpoints. By breakpoints, I mean different widths. So like, just as an example, maybe it's what it would look like within an 1100 width, 1200 width, 1300 width, and up and a little bit higher than that and lower than that. Then you can kind of compare and see how things would align and how things would change, how the different design elements would look when there's a lot of space in between, and how they would look when there's less space in between. And you can make some decisions as far as typography sizes and potentially other elements like images and CTAs. Don't forget that if you're using large background images and there's people in your large background images on the hero section of your website, and when you're testing the different width points of that, making sure that elements don't overlap on people's faces. For the most part, it's important to make sure that happens in most width points. As you're checking the different sizes, also make sure that your large headline doesn't push elements down as the size of the widths are getting smaller. Also, I wanted to briefly mention that it's important to think about the mobile version of the hero section of your website as well, because now you have to think about what is this going to look like in a vertical environment, right? Because in most cases, people are going to be looking on the mobile version and they're going to be holding their phone vertically, right? So now we're going from a horizontal environment to a vertical environment. And in there, you might think about probably restructuring some of the elements. For example, on the desktop version, you might have the large headline on the left side and you might have the graphic on the right side. But then on the mobile version, maybe you have them in a horizontal view. So you would have maybe the headline on the top and you might have the graphic on the bottom. But it really just depends on the graphic and on the headline. So you would have to experiment and see what works best. I've also noticed that a lot of websites in the mobile specific versions try to cram a lot of information to fit inside the mobile environment. And I don't think that's a good idea to do, right? You really want things to be able to breathe and you want things to be digestible. So I really recommend actually removing certain things, possibly like the social proof, possibly some graphics, and really keeping the most crucial information for the mobile version. So maybe keeping in the examples that I've been talking about, maybe just keeping that background image and keeping that large headline and taking everything else away. Again, you would just have to kind of experiment and see how things are looking and how they're working, but definitely don't keep too much elements on the mobile version. So really, I hope the big takeaway for you is really just to experiment with your designs and checking them on all sizes and on different devices. That way you can kind of see how things would be in context. It's very important to try things out in context, meaning that if it's specifically for mobile, you actually want to look at it in mobile. I strongly suggest looking at other websites' hero sections and also looking at them on desktop and mobile and kind of just making the window smaller and bigger and seeing how things kind of adjust and realign depending on what the width point is. And that way you can kind of see how other people are doing it and how other people are handling hero sections of their websites. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I hope you had some good takeaways. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, feel free to subscribe and also hit a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And also, I will see you in the next video, and I hope you have a good rest of the day or night, depending on where you are. See you later.